Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, this is Majority Caucus Live on your multi-TV. Towards the twilight of the program, I would activate the phone line so you could make your contributions known. Before the break, we were looking at corruption as a subtopic to the broad topic, which is why you should not vote for the NPP and Nana Akufo-Addo. Benjamin, you were dealing with the character, personality, integrity, and how you think it will help to fight corruption.
Yeah, so I was just contrasting the attitude of the government when there was a public uproar on judgment debt and how the NDC government reacted. And I was contrasting it with how the NPP government reacted when there was a public uproar on the sale of government lands to public officials. Okay. Now, in the case of the NPP, in the run-up to the 2008 elections, you recall there were massive demonstrations by Ga youth, Ga chiefs, massive demonstrations by political agents and political organs, civil society groups. They all said it was immoral to sell properties that belong to all of us, to individuals, state officials who have been custody. It's unethical for them to purchase it. The president himself, the national chairman, they shouldn't do it. What was the attitude of the NPP towards it? That is the crux of fighting corruption. The NPP, as we speak, went out publicly to defend, demonstrate, and make sure that all of its officials who took some of this land actually possess it. Kufu, as we speak, has his. Jake, as we speak, has it. All of them are still possessing their lands.
Akufo-Addo claims, I mean, he never benefited
They have not instituted a single legislation to make sure that this policy is changed. Do you know what the NDC government has done? The cabinet, as we speak, have passed a law that no member of government has a right to purchase state lands, and it is law. As we speak, the NDC is also proposing that when it comes to power, it is going to set up a committee to look at all other individuals who have acquired some of this land and get them to refund it if it was not done appropriately. Beyond that, the government is also going to revamp the entire redevelopment legislation and make sure that the original intention of making it useful, if you are passing on the Kanda Highway, you see a very nice edifice called Night Heights. It's put up by the Teachers Association. And this thing is an organization, even though private, it serves the entire association of teachers. Why do you allow individuals to come? Let me just quickly go in. What I'm just telling you is that the NDC has a track record of responding to corruption. So in that sense, we have put in place the constitutional review, which has reviewed the Constitution of Ghana to make sure that relevant legislation that will make corruption and fighting it effective have been introduced.
So clearly the NDC has demonstrated its commitment.
But beyond that, the Economic and Organized Crime Office, which previously was called ESOFO, has been revamped. They've been retooled. Indeed, their legislations have been enhanced. They have powers to go beyond public corruption into private corruption. They can initiate prosecutions and other incidents of that nature to make sure that they get their works done. Beyond those legislation, there has been the Transparency Extractive Industries Act to make sure that people who go into oil production and government dealings are done in a manner which is so transparent, clear.
We would go through some of the measures implemented. But Dr. Percy, one most important question that people keep asking at the end of the day is when these laws are implemented, sometimes they are not being followed with action. Any of you, what do you think has been the effect of political corruption under the Fourth Republic of Ghana?
Well, I mean, corruption
has it hurt the governance system?
No, I'm saying that corruption at every level and in every way you look at it is destructive. And I was making the point at the end of my last that it is corrosive. By corrosive, I mean that it damages morale and the general feeling of collective solidarity, okay? That why should I do my work diligently and see X getting away with what belongs to all of us.
Okay.
Okay? So that is a major issue. Now, I heard Mr. Ashna speaking to the different attitudes of the NDC and the NPP. And I would take it a step further and say that the differences in attitudes of the parties flows from the differences in their character and their attitude to what is the Commonwealth of Ghana. Okay? And you have to go back into history to really understand this. The Dankwa Buzia stock, out of which the NPP comes from, believe that they are the owners of this country. They believe it fundamentally. Okay?
As in birthright.
Precisely. And that if anybody but themselves happens to be in power, then they are in power illegitimately. Okay? They are in power by accident, they are in power by default. They certainly ought not to be there. Okay? And if they are in power, well, this country belongs to them. Now, so the attitude basically is that you cannot steal from yourself.
Okay.
Okay. So you're talking
So
about public land.
It's legitimate.
It's not a big deal. It is theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that difference is not often recognized. Okay. Now, which is not to say that corruption is to be allowed or to be tolerated under any regime. Now, the other point I wanted to make is that political corruption fundamentally sustains any politics that is based on patronage. And by patronage, I mean when you have a situation where parties are owned, controlled by a few bosses. It doesn't matter how it starts, but eventually it has to be taken out of the public purse through the padding of contracts, okay, and through all kinds of arrangements to pay for the political enterprise. Okay? Okay. And so I have a particular attitude to the discourse on corruption. That sometimes you get the feeling that it is just a brush that parties tar each other with when they are...
There's no real commitment.
Yes, when they are in opposition, okay, governments are tarred with corruption, okay? But it is not because people are, in principle, opposed to it. It's just that it is not them who are benefiting from it. Okay. So, if you want to move to a situation where we reduce corruption to the barest minimum, and you send out the signal that corruption is unwise, and that people pay a penalty for it, then first of all, you want to have a situation where our people know on a regular basis what is being done with their resources. Because after all, the contest in December is essentially a contest by people to manage our taxes. The monies that they collect from us, the loans that they collect in our names. Essentially. Okay. So we ought to know, as the people who are employing the politicians ought to know what is happening in our name with our taxes, with the loans that are being contracted for the purposes of investment in either fiscal infrastructure, public services, what have you.
But Dr. Percy, under the NDC, the current NDC government, have you not seen, measures, swift actions taken against some public officials perceived to have engaged in acts?
I would say that if you go back to, say, what we saw under the NPP, there certainly was a sea change, okay, in terms of attitude. Okay. I recall, for instance, what I call the descent of the NPP and under President Kufuor, when he started out by saying that he had a policy of zero tolerance for corruption. He said so before he came into government. He said so on the occasion of his first, I believe, sessional address.
Yeah.
Or maybe State of the Nation address.
Yeah.
Okay. And then subsequently, he kept lowering the bar. Until the point where he said, well, if there are any cases of corruption, take it to the police.
Okay.
Or that, look, I will not investigate my ministers, because that is the way to bring down your government.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was really a sad day in our history. Okay. So, I mean, and Benji has made a point about for instance, what we saw in relation to the issues around Mr. Alfred Woyome. Okay. When the accusations came up, okay, there's been action initiated. Of course, the progress of the action rests with the courts, and we know that under our constitution there's a separation of powers.
I would get back to you and allow you to continue at the very moment I return from this short commercial break.